Hi, I'm Kerri with ScienceGal Aquatics, and today I thought it would be really fun to gather up some of my fish friends and have them answer a question that I at least would find helpful. Plus, I'm just kind of curious on what everybody does. If this is your first time here, make sure you check out that subscribe button down below. And if you see any new faces, make sure you check out their channel too. I'll have everybody listed down below in the description box. So, I hope you enjoy my addition to this simple fish keeping series, and it's time to go check out how everybody acclimates their new fish. And if you stay tuned to the very end, I'll share with you how I acclimate my new fish too. So let's go.
What's cracking, YouTube? It's me, the Biz, Fishy Biz Aquatics, professional aquatics with the amateur touch on amateurs. Yep. And ScienceGal Aquatics asked me, what is your steps or process to acclimating fish to your tanks? So here we go. I'm in my classroom. Here's my classroom tanks, 1 and 2. And normally if I have the lights on, the first thing I probably am going to do is I'm going to turn the lights off, which I have to switch over here. Boom. Now, once the lights are out, I'm going to float the bag of fish right here at the top. And I'm going to do that for about 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, I'm going to take that bag and I'm going to roll the top of it down so that it still floats and keeping those fish in the water. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scoop out a little bit of the tank water into the baggie. All right. The 15 minutes is to help the temperature, the bag of fish fit the temperature of the tank. And also pouring a little tank water in there will help them get acclimated to the actual substances of the water that will help them acclimate quicker. So, with that being said, you do that like 3 times, about 5-minute intervals between each time. So, scoop water, boom, wait about 5 minutes. Scoop water, boom, wait about 5 minutes. After I do that 3 times, I feel like it's probably time for them to be released if you don't witness any strange activity going on in the bag. So at that point in time, what I do is I come over here and sprinkle a little bit of food on one side of the tank. Notice how they all gravitate to that side. And then I net my fish out of the bag and release them on the side that doesn't have any fish while they're all distracted eating food. I always net out of the bag of water and never release. I used to put the whole bag and just dump them in there. But I had to realize that some people, some LFS, some big box stores have issues with their water and that you just don't know about. And you don't want to contaminate your nice tank water with a bag full of dirty water or weird stuff in their water that's just not going to be cohesive with your tank. So there you go. That's how I acclimate my fish and release them into the tank. Well, before the bell rings, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks a lot, Kerri. I appreciate you. Hope this was good for you. But that's how I acclimate fish, the biz way, or the busy way. I like that. All right, and I'm out. Peace.
Hey, Kerri. Thanks for inviting me to join you on this video. Best way to acclimate a new fish. So I have 2 different methods. One, if it's from a local fish store, maybe I'll bring it home and I do it more the traditional way. I put it in the tank, let it temperature acclimate, and I'll trade out some of the water, take some of that water out, put some of my water in. But if the fish has been in the bag for more than an hour or so, or like if I brought it from another town, like I went to a fish show and I brought them home, or if it was mailed to me because I did mail order, I do the plop and drop, which is I take a net and I put it over a bucket. After it's temperature acclimated, I take a net, I put it over a bucket, I plop the water into there with the fish into the net, and then put it right into the tank. The idea being that if temperature isn't a factor, maybe the chemical changes won't be, it's going to be kind of in shock either way. In fact, what can happen is once air hits the water, the pH will change in a way that makes any ammonia present in the water even more toxic. So that's, I think, the main idea behind that method. And I'm not sure how long it takes for it to get that way. So to be on the safe side, if if it's only been in the bag for a few minutes, I don't worry about it too much. And a lot of times it's a 5-minute drive to my store. But if it's been sent to me or I've taken it from a long distance, I just do that method. I learned it from Rachel O'Leary, and countless other breeders do this too. So it's a good idea to think about.
As far as acclimating fish goes, I do the most simplest thing you possibly can do, and probably what a lot of other people do as well. I take the fish that's in the bag and I float it on the water for 15-20 minutes until the temperature seems to be close to the same as the tank water in the aquarium. And then I cut the bag open, I pour the bag of water and the fish over a bucket into a net, and then I stick the fish right in the water. I don't do any of the drip acclimating stuff. I've always done it exactly the way I just said.
What is the best way to acclimate new fish? I don't think there's anyone more qualified than me to answer that, because I used to own a fish store where I acclimated tens of thousands of fish into that store on a weekly, sometimes daily basis. And with all of them, no matter how delicate they were or how fragile they were, I did it the same way with all of them. And that is the good old-fashioned plop and drop method. Float the bag in the tank so that the water temperature balances out between the bag and the aquarium, then remove the fish from the fish bag and drop the fish only into the tank. That's the way I've done it. Like I said, tens of thousands of fish I've done that with, and I've never had any problems at all. Some people are afraid that the new water is going to be a shock to them. The biggest thing that's going to shock them is temperature. If you get that balanced out, you're not going to have an issue there. And you know what? It doesn't matter if that fish has been in the bag for 20 minutes or 2 hours or overnight. The water in that fish bag is pretty daggone funky. And so they're going to be thrilled to get out of that nasty water and be introduced into your nice, clean aquarium that you take care of every single day. So yes, I don't mess around with drip acclimation and all that. I'm too afraid of the pH swings and all that kind of stuff. And I want to get the fish out of that nasty water as fast as I can. Float them, take the fish out, plop it in the water, good to go. I've done it thousands, if not tens of thousands of times. I've never lost a fish during the acclimation process.
Hello everyone, my name is Kasha and my channel is called Creative Pet Keeping. I have a little apartment fish room where I have a lot of little nail tanks and one kind of, not medium tank, I want to say, that I pretend is my big tank, and I breed a lot of fish and share a lot of fish tips and tricks. So if you like it, be sure to check out my channel. What is the best way to acclimate your fish? So in my opinion, if you want to really simplify it, just float your bag with your little fishies in the aquarium that you're going to put them in for a minimum of 15 minutes, preferably 30 minutes, I would say. Then afterwards, remove them using a net out of the little bag and then gently plop them into your fish tank. Because you floated the bag, this will allow the temperature of the water that is in the bag to slowly match to the temperature of your tank, and therefore it will reduce the shock that your fish may kind of encounter from one tank to another. You can also drip acclimate, and there's a lot of other cool tips and tricks that you can do, but this is like the basic one if you want to keep things simple.
Hey guys, Joe Shrimp Shack here, and there's some questions asked upon us, and I'm here to answer them. So the first question that was asked was best way to acclimate a fish. So how I like to acclimate fish is I like to float the bag for about 20 to 30 minutes, get the water temperature up, and then what I do is I use an AccuDrip. I use an AccuDrip for drip acclimation on there. I usually do about two drops a second, and usually acclimate it for over a half-hour period of time. What that allows to do is allows the bag that they were already currently in to actually change to my tank parameters. And then when that's all done, I usually go over and I scoop the fish out. I never use the same water to introduce it back into the tank. Thanks guys, and ready for the next question.
Hello everyone, this is Jason from Primetime Aquatics. What is the best way to acclimate fish? Well, the first thing, we do not ever put fish from a pet store directly into our display tank. We just don't do it. We're not going to risk it. We always quarantine our fish for not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 weeks in total. So how do we acclimate the fish to our quarantine tanks? We take the bags from the fish store, we put them in our quarantine tank for about 15 to 30 minutes, make sure the water temperature is about the same. Then we open up the bag, pour the fish into a net. The bag water does not go into our quarantine tank. The fish do, where again they will stay for 4 weeks, but that's generally how we do our fish acclimation process.
Acclimating fish to drip or not to drip. When I first started in this hobby, I looked at acclimation as like the key to making fish thrive and live forever and ever. The slower the acclimation, the better. Slow drip, 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 drip. If I lost a new fish after a few days, I think it's on me. I didn't acclimate slow enough. Maybe there was too much of a pH swing or something else in the water that just the fish couldn't get used to in 15 minutes or whatever. Nowadays, I've kind of come to the realization that it's not such a big deal. It's plop and drop for me now, meaning I float the bag in the aquarium water for 20 minutes or so to equalize the temperature, and then I net the fish and release it into the tank. And there are specific reasons in favor of doing this for fish that maybe have spent a few days in a bag that they were shipped to you. You'd want to get them out of the bag water sooner rather than later, because the dissolved organics that build up in the bag water can be pretty bad as it is, but they theoretically become even more toxic when you open the bag and expose it to air, because you gas off the CO2 from the bag, which raises the pH of the water and thereby raises the toxicity of ammonia. Whether or not that's really an issue in the short term, the most important part of acclimating a fish, in my opinion, really starts before it ever reaches your home. A responsible fish store is going to do the real acclimation for you. And they're going to do it by giving their new fish arrivals a proper quarantine period to monitor their health and quality before even thinking about selling them to you. So really, I say there are 2 keys to acclimation. Number 1, do your homework on the fish you intend to buy. Make sure you provide the right environment for the animal, like water parameters, tank size, filtration, temperature, substrate, and the whole 9 yards. And I mean, honestly, we're all doing this anyway, right? Or at least we should be. Second, buy from a store with a reputation for high quality livestock and a guarantee to go with it. So one that quarantines, one that actually cares about the source of the fish they're bringing into their store. And I think if you focus on those 2 things, then your method of introducing a new fish to your tank is a whole lot less important.
James here from Fish Room Fever, and today I want to share with you my favorite method for acclimating new fish. It's a fairly common and standard method. You'll hear it referred to as plop and drop sometimes. And basically what you're going to do is allow the bag with the fish to float in the aquarium that you want to put those fish into for about 15 to 20 minutes. But what this is allowing you to do is, 1, get the temperature in the bag the same as the temperature of the water in the aquarium that those fish are going into. It also gives you a chance to observe behaviors. So maybe you've got a more aggressive fish that's in that aquarium, and you can take this chance to look and see if it's trying to bite at those new fish that are sitting in the bag. So once you've let that bag float for a little while, you then can take a net and a container. I don't recommend doing it over the sink just in case a fish misses going into the net. I usually will use a 5-gallon bucket. Take that bag of fish that you're wanting to add to the tank, open the bag up, pour the fish in the water through that net and into your container, and then take your net full of fish and put them in the tank. That way you're not putting any of the water from the bag into the aquarium, because even though it could come from a very trusted source to you, you still really never know what's in the water. So if your fish came in breather bags, about the easiest way to acclimate them is to get them into a separate container and out of the bag. You don't want to float a breather bag. From that point, there are a couple different methods. 1, you can add a little bit of water over time using another container to simply scoop water from your aquarium and dump it in with those fish. Or you can set up a piece of airline tubing or other similar hose and slowly run some water in. Not necessarily a drip acclimation, but a lower flow of water so that it doesn't shock the fish with drastic temperature differences. From that point, same method as before, pour them through the net into another container and then take that net full of fish, put it in your tank, and enjoy your new fish.
Hey guys, it's Lefty here. So the best way personally that I acclimate fish is the good old float and drop. So what I do is I get home from the fish store with fish come in the mail. I open the box, get the fish in the door. I'm going to take that bag of fish, take the lid off my tank, stick the fish bag in the tank, and then I just like to take the lid, I close the lid over, open my little hatch, and then just kind of pull the bag through that little lip where you feed your fish, just so it's constant. It stays still and doesn't, float around and whatever. And then I do that. Usually I leave it in for 15 to 20 minutes, depending on if the water in the bag feels colder to me than the water in my tanks. Usually by feel, you can tell. Once you do this long enough, you can kind of tell what temperatures your tanks are just by feeling the water. So 15-20 minutes, float the bag, take the bag out, have a 5-gallon bucket with a net, scissors, cut the top off, put the net over the bucket, dump the bag of fish in. If it's a lot of fish, I use a bigger net. If it's 1 or 2 fish, I just use a smaller little net. And then I take the net and I pinch it. I pinch it right here on the bottom so that the fish don't jump out. And then I walk over to the tank, put them in, let go of my hand, and the fish are in the tank. So that is how I acclimate new fish. I don't do the whole drip method or anything. I just do the old float, plop, and drop.
Hi, I'm Chad Nugad. And Kerri, you're asking what's the best way to acclimate new fish? Well, I like to start off with a quarantine tank, which is basically the same water perimeters that I have in my other tanks, because the tank is already in my fish room, so the temperature is already right on. And I try to keep the same pH. I try to keep everything relatively same. So once I know that the fish is healthy after 2 weeks, I just simply take them and I plop and drop them.
Hi, I'm Jess with Mainsail Spur and Fins. I have been asked to help out with a question of what is the best way to acclimate fish, right? But the best way, or the way that I acclimate fish, is either the plop and drop method or the drip acclimation method. And the plop and drop method is where you bring a fish home and it was mailed to you or overnighted, however, and it came in a bag similar to this, and the water is a little chilly or warm or whatever. It's different than what's in your tank, or it's different than the way you want it to be in your tank. You take your bag of fish and you float it in your tank for 20-some minutes for the water to become the same temperature of the water that's in the bag. Then you'll take the bag back out of the aquarium, and you're going to want to get you a net, and a pretty big net. You don't want to use a net that is this size to try to collect the fish or the shrimp or whatever it is that you have had mailed to you or picked up from your local fish store. So you take a bucket, put your net over the bucket, and make sure that a little bit overlaps. That way it's holding. Then you take and you open your bag, pour your fish in the net, the water collects in the bucket, and then you have your fish in the net. Then you'll just take your fish and plop and drop into the tank that they're going in. The other method is the drip acclimation. And with the drip acclimation, you're going to use on a fish that is coming into a different type of water. So say I've got killifish and I have hard water, right? So I'm going to want to drip acclimate them into the water that I am wanting them to go in from the water they came from. So what you do is you take an air hose and make sure that you have this little piece here that has the dripper on it. That way you can adjust the amount that's dripping into the water. Now, when you do this, make sure you just pour the bag with the fish that they came in into a bucket. If they are killies or they are a fish that jumps, make sure you cover the bucket. That way they don't jump out. I've had it happen. I've had killifish jump out on me. Thank goodness he lived, but it happened. And then get your hose that's coming from your tank that the fish are going into. Adjust or siphon the water. Yes, you have to suck on it a little bit to let it start acclimate or dripping in. And then adjust with your dripper how fast or slow you want the water to drip into it. And that's how you drip acclimate your fish. I use both methods. It just depends on the fish. There is one other way to drip acclimate your fish, and that is by using one of these breeder boxes. What you can do is make sure there's a little bit of water in here. Take and mix, pour your fish that you got, pour that and the water it came in into here, into the breeder box. The only way I would do this is in a tank that there are no other fish in, because you don't want the water that the fish came in to mix with any other fish that you had that are already in a tank. So when you when you do use a breeder box to acclimate your fish, make sure that there's not any other fish that are in the tank. And that just happens by, and I'll get a close up of this, but they come in 2 different sizes, I believe. This one is one that has 3 different compartments, but they have a small, I believe. And it comes with this right here that hooks up to an air hose, and it slowly will pump water into the breeder box, and then it will, once it fills up, it will start overflowing into your tank. And that's another way that you can drip acclimate your fish if you're going from one water to another. So I have given you 3 ways that you can acclimate your fish. I hope that I have helped you, and I am Jess with Mainsail Spur and Fins. Thanks.
So I will have to say that I have acclimated new fish a couple of different ways through the years, but my favorite way of acclimating new fish that has not been in the fish bag for a long time is as soon as I get them home, whether it's from the local fish store or I had them mailed to me. If they have not been in the bag for a very long time, I will bring them down to the fish room and set them aside and just let them rest for a little while, get used to the room temperature for 30 minutes or so. Once they've just kind of chilled for a little while, I will open up the bag, or I'll open up the box that they came in and take them out and let them just temperature acclimate and float on the top of the aquarium that they're going into. I'll just let them float at the top, just kind of rest there at the surface of the water level for again another 30-45 minutes, just getting them used to the temperature of the water the best I can. If all looks good, once some time's passed, I will go ahead and grab a 5-gallon bucket and a fish net, and I'll open up that fish bag and just pour everything through that fish net. I do not want the water that they came in to go into their new home. All the fish and everything, they're in that fish net. I'll move it over to the aquarium and I'll let them loose. I will turn off the light during this time. It's the one time I remember to turn off the light, but I will let them go. I will watch them for a while, just make sure if they are going into a tank with another fish that everything's working out. But I will just honestly let them get used to the room temperature and then move them over to the tank. let them get used to the tank water, and then let them go. Make sure that I don't put any of the tank water that they came into the new tank that they're going into the best I can. But that's my favorite way of acclimating new fish. If they are brackish, I will slow down the process and usually drip acclimate a little bit more if they are a fish on the brackish side of things. But this is my favorite way of acclimating freshwater fish. Thank you so much for watching. This has been a fantastic time. Thank you for checking out my addition to this simple fish keeping series. If you saw any new faces, make sure you check out their channels. They will all be listed below. But I hope you picked up some great advice and a few tips for all the new fish that you're going to be acclimating soon. Thank you again, and until next time, thanks for watching. Enjoy.